Okay, I have 4:01 and I will call the meeting to order. Mary, would you read the governor's?
Yep. So this open meeting of the Town Area Plan Work Group of the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission is convening by a video conference pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 as extended on July 16th, 2022. This meeting is being recorded and all attendees are participating remotely via Zoom as identified on the town's website, saying how the public may join. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please silence all phones and devices. Let's see. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment if any is available. And you may also submit comments to, this would be to Megan Trudell, mtrudell@nantucket-ma.gov. Henry, you want to do a roll call?
Yes, I'm here. Mary?
Here.
Lee?
I here.
Mary Ann?
Here.
Marcia?
Here.
Mickey?
Here.
Okay, now we got Reagan. No, and Allison. All right, 2 missing. All right, we do have a quorum. Approval of the agenda. Any changes? Any discussion? Okay. Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, opposed? That's good. All right, approval of the draft minutes from November 1st, 2022. Is there any discussion? Okay, motion to approve.
I move to approve, Mary Ann.
Mary Ann. Second.
Second.
Mickey seconds. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that's done. With that, I'll introduce our guest speaker, Holly Backus, who is a preservation planner for the town. Holly, it's all yours.
Henry, just note, we'll come back to the survey after Holly so that we don't have to keep her on for that update.
Thank you all for having me. I would also extend a thank you for being an arm of the NPDC and the Planning Commission for doing what you're doing. I know Mary can attest that that's a much help. So I guess I'm here to really give an overview of our historic resource surveys project. That is initiative with the Nantucket Historical Commission through our certified local government program that the town of Nantucket is now a certified local government, which is a joint partnership between both the Nantucket Historical Commission and the HDC. We have a signed MOU as required because we have 2 commissions that serve in this role. Nantucket became the 27th community within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to become a certified local government with the National Park Service, basically including preservation planning as a planning function within local government. And I've been a proponent of preservation or of the certified local government program since I was 16 years old, interning with the Nantucket Preservation Trust. So I'm very, very happy to be a part of this. And with that capacity, I serve as the certified local government coordinator for the town. So anything that deserves the certified local government notification, whether it comes from Massachusetts Historical Commission, the SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, or it comes from any other entity, whether it's a organization that's needing to do a notice of intent, that would be something that would come through, say, a NEPA review or Section 106, whether it's the wind farms or it's even something as simple as notification for doing cell towers or antennas of that nature. So that kind of gives an overview that CLG is a good status.
If I could ask, you said you're going to talk about the historic, and I didn't get the second word, the survey.
Oh, yes, so I'll get into that. So our
What's it called? I'm taking notes.
Yes, sorry. What is our formal? It's basically our Nantucket's island-wide historic resource survey plan.
Resource, that's the word I wanted.
Resource, yes. It's basically a preservation plan. It's a form of a preservation plan. Those can come in multiple shapes and sizes, but this is for our historic resources. And very, very happy. And I would like to share my screen if that's okay.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. I
Let me
want to,
make sure I have that enabled for you, Holly.
thank you.
Holly, if you've got something that you're sharing, if you could send it to me, I'll get it into the minutes.
Absolutely. I'll do a screenshot of it, right? What this is our survey plan. So we, this is the GIS mapping tool that has been created. This is in draft format. It's not 100%, but it's about 99.9% there. So through the CLG, the town of Nantucket, through the Historical Commission, received federal funding that's allocated through the Congress. They're required to provide 10% of their federal funding that they're allocated to certified local governments. So Nantucket received a federal grant of $20,000, technically $22,000, 500. And we have a 50-50 matching. So we allocated money obviously through town meeting. So this is roughly a $45,000 to $50,000 project to create two things: one, a survey plan, and another to do pilot surveys. I know everybody here is familiar with HDC surveys, and I'm going to go down to this area. You all, here we go. So we have 49 different areas that the Historical Commission, working with our consultant PAL, to create the survey plan we have created. So I'm going to kind of get into the downtown area. Looking at your town area map, I wanted to mention that technically your area boundary is equivalent to about 15 different areas that we have created for the survey plan. As you all are probably well aware, one of those areas includes the fish lots, which is predominantly this area that I'm circling on the plan. And through this federal grant that we received, our consultant PAL was also able to create surveys, HDC surveys, or what they call Form Bs with the State Historic Preservation Office, to have these surveys. We have about approximately 99 surveys that are going to be going with this area, which is Fair Street, Pine Street, and all the different side streets off of it. But these are the fish lots. And so when you go to the town's website and you click on the MHC layer, you're actually going to see, see these triangles. Well, you're going to see these triangles through this entire area that's been surveyed. And that's the goal, is to have all surveys. So what you see right now, as I go out, those are the existing surveys that the state MHC has on file through their MACRIS program, which is the Massachusetts, oh gosh, I forget what the acronym completely stands for, but it's their information system. It's where you can find all surveys of historic and cultural resources within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And 1989 was the last effort that the town of Nantucket actually did. We do have surveys that are here at the PLUS office to the HDC that have never been actually scanned and provided to the state. So those will also be updated and those will also be included, but that's the goal, is to have an HDC survey or Form B for all cultural resources on the island. And that's for the entire National Historic Landmark, which also includes Tuckernutt and Muskeget. So we are, like I said, finishing up the Form Bs for the fish lots. They're actually going to be, I believe, submitted to MHC for their final inclusion at the end of the month. So I can't wait to see these red dots come up and be available to the public. And then we received our next fiscal grant through the CLG for $20,000, and that's going to be for a project in the Brant Point area. as Mickey is well aware, we put in that application that was accepted, went through the whole procurement process, and we've actually were able to secure PAL again. They're a cultural resources organization that's been around from Rhode Island for about 40 years now, I believe. Well-versed in cultural resources and well-versed in Nantucket history. So they're going to be looking at Brant Point, and all these triangles that you see are existing HDC surveys will be updated in the Form B format. And of course, we know over time, some of these structures may or may not be of historic significance. They may have been altered, they may have been moved, they may have been demolished. So this effort will also be able to clean that up and verify whether or not that historic resource is there. And if there is a resource that we've known has been notated that's not there anymore, they will notate that in the overall record at the state. That will just, the information will still be there, and any historic information that we want to have in it, but it will just indicate that it's no longer there. And one of the also good things about this is I've noticed over the last couple of years that some of these old HDC surveys are also for structures that are non-contributing. So of course, our period of significance, for those who are not aware, goes from 1659, I believe that the date is, all the way up to 1975. Not inclusive of everything of 1975, because there are some structures that actually are not prevalent within our basically being from a significant aspect, but it goes up to 1975 nonetheless. So our consultant was able to go through our NHL update. If you're not familiar with what the National Historic Landmark update was, that was done in 2012 by a CPC grant that the Nantucket Preservation Trust was able to acquire, and they hired Brian Pfeiffer and another consultant to update our National Historic Landmark nomination, and that extended our period of significance outside of the period of the whaling era, including the preservation era, the Walter Beinecke era, that very important era that gives us our mark within the national, basically the national history of the preservation movement, which is very, very important. Nantucket plays a big role in that. And then it also codified the inclusion of Tucker Knot and Muskegon, because there was some gray area there. And Brian Pfeiffer and his colleague did a fantastic job. If you're not familiar with that document, it's available on the town's website through the Nantucket Historical Commission's page. I highly recommend taking a look at that. And our consultant was able to take the data that came out of that. So when they did that, there's also a link on our page about the basically inventory. So all the properties that were created at the time of the National Park Service's windshield view of the island when they were doing the update. And we have an Excel spreadsheet that's over 300 pages. It's just crazy. But it indicates whether structures or properties are contributing or not contributing based on that 1975 date, excuse me. And some of them are, not 100% accurate because some of it's based on our tax assessor's information. That's why I tell people never, ever, ever get a period of a date for a structure off of the tax assessor's website. And I have talked to Rob Randy about that. And he has actually a disclaimer on the town's assessor's page. Make sure people realize that that is not where you find your date of your structure. So basically we are going to be tackling your area downtown. This is Brant Point, and I'll tell you that our consultant is going to be making that this layer is going to be a little easier to read, so you can tell the areas a little bit better. But this is Brant Point that goes all the way to obviously Jetties and down at the galley. Then we have what we call this area right here is what are we calling this one? This one is Lily Pond. And then we have downtown. You can tell that these two areas should be separate colors so that they're fixing that. Like I said, they're tweaking some things here. And really, it was an interesting process of trying to figure out how do we divvy it up. This kidney shape here of these two different areas, which is Main Street West, I believe we call this, and this is Woodbury. This is actually the shape of the Crooked Record from the 1600s from Richard Gardner. So there's some overlap with how historically Nantucket was developed. Within this one, which is the Wesco Acre Lots, we know Wesco Acre Lots is actually really from Liberty Street up through Quint Street. It is more of a rectangular area, but nonetheless, we tried to mimic some of these areas. And as we zoom out, as you can see how, once we get out of town, these areas get a little bit larger. And then, of course, not everywhere is there going to be an actual structure survey. They also have, the state also has guidance for surveying parks, cemeteries, marker features. So for instance, our monuments that are in town right of way, our meridian stones, which are actually town owned, those are objects. So those will get object forms. And I want to give a shout out, since Marcia's here, to the effort that the Sconset Trust and Betsy Tyler have been doing, because some of the history that they've been doing, they've been able to add to our Form B initiative, and actually have about a dozen so far submitted to MHC. So we're going to have some of these updated or new out in Sconset. And of course, Sconset, has its own right now, but we want to see those updated as well. So basically, if you look at this map, you can actually see these triangles on the town's website right now. And you'll also see some stars. Those stars represent properties that have preservation restrictions, most of them held by the Nantucket Preservation Trust. So
Holly,
that's another effort as well. Yes, sir.
Holly, you talk about the town's website. Can you lead me through it?
Yeah, so if you go to the main page of the town here, I can actually go through that for you. I'll show you really quick. Go to the town's website, you go to the GIS, click on the online GIS, and then you go to themes. Click, see right here where it says MHC Historic Inventory. Click on that. All right, did it do it? Yep, it's thinking. See all that, there they are. See all those triangles that popped up? There they are. This is on the town's website right now. So my point is all the survey effort, which is going to be a multi-year phase process. And of course, we can't do it without our private partnership. So it's a public and private partnership with folks like NPT and Sconset Trust. But the goal is to obviously survey the entire island and hopefully Tuckernuck Muskegon as well. And we'll see more of these triangles. And of course, that would be anything that's deemed contributing towards the district. So that's pretty much the effort, that we've been doing. This plan is, I told the commission, the historical commission today, I'm very giddy and happy about how it's turned out. And and I've told our consultant that this effort is not going to be a document sitting on a shelf. It'll be available to the public. It'll be used by staff. It'll be used by both commissions. And I know my fellow colleagues in the preservation world will also utilize it. So I hope you all will learn a lot too from it. The information that you may be familiar with an HDC survey now, and I can zoom in. Some of them are a little bit better than others. For instance, let me see. Let me take the Stiller's house down there on Harborview Way. We all know Stiller's. So this is what you can do. You click on it. It'll take you right to the MACRIS, the Massachusetts Cultural Resource Information Systems. Click on that, and it takes you to the state's website. And this gives you an inventory of the HDC survey. You can actually click on that survey right here. And there's the HDC survey. This is the cover page that MACRIS puts on, the state puts on. And this is the 1989 survey effort. So it's very generic in nature when it comes to the best practices that the Form Bs now take. As you can see, it's got just very basic lot size, description of the property, your significance, whether it's contributing or not. It's very, very generic. And I know, as Mickey and Marcia are aware, the Form Bs that are provided nowadays through this effort are more detailed. So I can click out of that, click out of that. And if I go to a property that's been recently done through an effort from NPT, we'll go down to, all right, here we go. You all are familiar with this one right here. Come on. Sometimes it's a little finicky when you click on it. There we go. So 79 Orange Street, you all remember this structure. Matt Fee owns it. This is the Antone Sylvia grocery store, and it used the facade that came from Main Street. I remember when that was being proposed to be demolished. I believe I was right, either a senior or just graduated from high school. Click on that. Scan again, the same cover page. Very, information is actually tells you the designation, our local national district, and then the fact that this property has a preservation restriction. But here is what the Form B looks like. So you can see the difference between the 1989 initiative of an HDC survey to the Form B that the state requires now. It gives you a lot more description, photograph, locus map. Then it gets into the actual architectural description, which is very nice, very detailed, and gives you into a narrative of the property, obviously people that are attributed to this structure, and then references. Some also have additional historic photographs, or the old Sanborn maps, the Sanborn insurance maps. So as you can tell, this initiative is really going to help provide more historical information of our island. So I guess I'll stop at that. Does anybody have any questions? Absolutely. Lee, yes.
I think I understand, Ollie. Are you telling us that our area, basically the Nantucket town as defined by MPEDC, is coming up for a survey? It is not, if I looked at the little triangles, there weren't very many of them in the town. So Brant Point's been well surveyed, but the town is what, next?
Well, so Brant Point actually is next. So we're going to update those triangles that you see, those old forms, and update that area. That's the next fiscal year project. And then we plan hopefully to continue finishing Brant Point as well. So let me back up. We're going to be finishing the fish lots and start Brant Point with this fiscal year coming up, which is what we've already secured, and we've already gone through the contract process with our consultant and select board approved. And then we, the Historical Commission, just put in our request or our notification to the state that we are interested to be able to apply for another round. And then hopefully we'll find out at the end of the year, so next month, that we've been chosen, let's hope, for fiscal year 24. Believe it or not, we're already getting to that. It's just a continued thing. And then we decided that we would like to finish Brant Point and then start in town. So that would be for the next fiscal year that we would start in your area. But again, if you actually look at your map, I don't know if you can see this, I tried to, and I could scan this and send it to you all, Lee, but I was trying to figure out your, here we go. Maybe if I put it on myself, I don't know. Sorry, but I tried to overlay as best I could our map that we've created for the survey effort in the different areas onto your map. And it comes to be about 15 of our areas that we actually have. So
Holly, let me break in for just a moment for clarity's
yes.
sake. you have already done most of the work for the fish lots, which are the lots between Pine Street and Orange Street. It's just not public yet.
Correct. There's a process with that. They have to be approved by MHC. So they have received those. They provided comments to both town through me and our consultant. Our consultant has revised those, and now it's just up to MHC to formally accept them and then have them available on through Macris, which then will be available onto our website and on this map. Yes. Now, it's not all of the fish lots, because this first grant project, since it was a double project of one creating this overall plan, and then the fish lots was a pilot to see how it would work. We're going to be finishing up the fish lots and then going over to Brant Point. So that's going to be the next project for fiscal 23. And then, like I said, for fiscal 24, we'd like to finish Brant Point and then dive into town. One of the cool things that comes out of this plan is it also gives us a methodology on how we want to tackle the surveying. So for instance, they have come up with a high, moderate to low priorities. Obviously, because of coastal resiliency and sea level rise, we look at that as a high priority. So of course, that's pretty much most of downtown and on the North Shore, anywhere on the coast for that matter. And then of course, parts on the interior are on a lower level. But it's really down to other aspects as well. Some areas don't have hardly any contributing structures. So of course, that area would be limited. But the fact that Nantucket has no donut holes in our jurisdiction, we have no donut holes in our National Historic Landmark district either. So that means everything is a pertinent to our national history. So that means even those areas that are just the moors, for instance, actually are important to actually, record, if that makes any sense. So
Holly, one of my thoughts was, from the perspective of the area plan, at the very least, we should mention this effort. And then, I don't know if you can, suggest a statement of how we would support it, or how we would emphasize the places that are within our area and mention them in the plan. And then how could we use the information that is available through this resource to help draft the area plan? So if you have suggestions in that regard, I think those would be helpful for this group. And then a completely separate topic was just in general, usually you write something about the area of the plan to describe it. And you're probably the best person who can help us describe the area and the significant events in its history that have led to where it is today. So those are the two specifics that I was hoping to be able to ask you today.
absolutely.
And you may need more time than just today to respond to some of that.
Thank you. Well, I think one thing that may be, and thank you for wanting to be able to mention this in the area plan. I think that's very important. Unlike Sconset, where we have taken the same boundaries of Sconset's area plan to utilize for this effort, we really had to divvy up the town area. So I know I have, like I said, I have a copy of the town area plan boundary. And we're going to be receiving this layer for Nathan, our GIS coordinator here at the town. So I was going to ask him to see if he can actually make it prettier and overlay the two, because then that would actually be very helpful. You'll be able to see really our effort and how the town area is going to be divvied up into this survey effort. So there's that. Like I said, I figured out it's about 15 different areas, and you can really see what we're looking at, everything from updating the Form Bs to actually creating new ones. to creating Form H's, which H's are for cemeteries and parks. And then we also have an area, or excuse me, an A area for areas. So those are landscape areas. So there's all these different things. And then of course the monuments themselves for objects. So there's these different formats, different forms, it's not just for structures or building structures. So there's that. As far as the description of the area, I would be very happy to help you all with that. I think like I mentioned before, both the NHL update, which was very significant for this plan, of course, there's an actual verbiage document that's going to be going with this survey plan, outlaying all the history, the period of significance, all those different eras. And those come directly out of our NHL update. And this area obviously is very important, especially from merging from the Capon Pond area to the Great Harbor area. There's been structures that were moved from Capon Pond to this part of town that we know of that are still around. So there's a lot of history, and it's very densely populated in your area of the island, of course. Very, very helpful. So yes, I would be very happy to assist you all in that.
One of the things that I think that most people on the island don't think about is that these areas that you've identified, I mean, you said 15 different parts of what you have in our area plan, they have different history. They have
Yes.
different reasons for being. They've had, different focuses. And, we all think of it today as town,
Right.
but it really isn't shaped by all the same forces. And so I thought that was a very interesting aspect and something that we should probably mention.
Absolutely. I mean, you have the fish lots that was laid out in 1717, but then you have the Wesco acre lots, which I believe was 1648. Then you have West Monomoy, which was a little bit farther down in the 1727. You've got the Crooked Record. You have so many parts of the first start of planning on Nantucket in this area, and everything from the Mill Hill all the way through. And I know your area plan doesn't necessarily include Brant Point. Am I correct on that? No,
Right.
They have their own.
We do not include Brant Point, correct?
And then you also, which I think is interesting, you also don't include this area, right?
Which one?
Which is basically
Holly, we can't see because I think that's Mary's shared screen.
No, it's not my screen. But
Okay.
I don't think it's the window that Holly was looking at that she was sharing.
so this should be, you see that now?
Yes,
Okay, so this is downtown.
Right. We don't include the commercial downtown.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're really from here over and then down. Yeah. So your Wesco acre lots, fish lots, waterfront. We've divvied up waterfront north. We have a waterfront south. We have West Monomoy, Mill Hill, Vestal, Main Street West, Woodbury, part of Grove Lane, and part of Cliff South, part of Cliff North. It looks like you have, and part of our commercial downtown that we've listed. So yeah, you have a lot. So getting Nathan's assistance on creating a map, I think would be very, very important. But I think even for your town area to really outline, like you said, the history is very, it's dense, like the area. There's a lot to it. So, and
Yeah,
if there's,
I go back to what I heard as a kid, that the Moore's End on Pleasant Street was considered too far out of town.
yes,
And
yes.
it's just very hard to imagine that.
It is very hard, absolutely. But the type of architecture, I know Marcia and Mickey can attest to that. The type of architecture that's in this area, everything from something that was built before the Great Fire of 1846, after the Great Fire of 1846, stuff that, again, like I said, moved from Capon Pond, and then a lot, and some infill. But there's a lot of history in general right here.
Holly, I have a couple of questions. I see from the map, and I understand that in order to even move forward with the fish lots, you had to put together an initial survey plan, correct? And it looks like even without completion of the Form B, it looks to me like there's an awful lot of information on this initial survey map. And I think I'm just curious, thinking about the various components of the master area plan that we're all working on, is whether there is any accessible information from this or from another town plan, like if we were to ask in our particular area, how many single family homes existed in the area, or how many businesses, is that information that is in a database as a result of even putting the basic survey plan together?
That's more of a data side from a planning function, not necessarily from this survey plan for our cultural resources. So that, would be more something that would be generated, I think, with the help of Nathan, because he has the data from the tax assessors, and the tax assessors has their own code source, and that's how everybody obviously is taxed the proper way. If you ever click on, so if I go to the property, you guys can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right. So of course, this is the generic GIS, and you know how you can click on a property, and you can click on the property card, go down. Of course, again, all of this being GIS based, I want to say there is, I don't see it right off. Maybe it's something over, but there's a code that are on these property cards for every single property linked in with the GIS. That's also linked with the tax assessors. Here it is. There's about the yes. So right here, for instance, this legend, all of these codes, my understanding, and I don't want to speak for Nathan, but I'm pretty sure he can synthesize through all of this and give you a report for your area of all these different land use descriptions. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. He would be the point for that one.
That would be very interesting, because that's one of the major questions that we've had, is just how much commercial use is in our neighborhood, knowing that we exclude the core downtown area. And every time we think about it, somebody comes up with one more, but we don't have anything definitive. And I think perhaps Nathan can give us a definitive list of which properties are commercial.
Right. Well, and I'm also thinking, Mary, about, as we're working on housing, and just to understand, well, how many single family homes do we have? How many? Yes,
right.
Some basics like that, because I just think numbers are really important in giving some recommendations or studying the area. So it could be that, it could be something else, right? So it would be good to learn how to do that, how to get that information from Nathan.
Oh yeah, yep. And I assume you're alluding to the PIN project that they're wanting to do, which is going to be great.
Yes.
So yes, I'm very giddy about that.
Yeah.
Anything to do with merging preservation and planning together. So
Yeah. I mean, even if we knew, I don't know, that might be a little bit harder to know within our area. How many empty vacant lots do we have?
right.
There could be any number of questions that might give us some actual data. The other question that that we've discussed a few times, and I don't know if, with the overlap of the work that you do, when we look at the area and, there's the overlay of our master area plan of our area and what you're working on, and the HDC original Old Historic District, and then there's zoning.
Mhm.
And I just curious to know, like, what your sense is about, how that works, how it doesn't work. What's your sense as a planner, since that zoning would have been, initiated in the 70s, I assume, but
72.
how it has evolved,
Mhm.
and what you perceive as successfully working, and what you think maybe isn't working.
One thing I think has been helping, and I think the initiative is still will be moving forward, was the removal of the R1 zoning that is basically around the ROH, and actually make it so what's in the ROH is actually which is in the what I like to call the 1955 Old Historic District boundary. Because obviously that old 1955 historic district boundary is never going to change. Yet we know that there are historic resources that are outside of the old historic district boundary. And again, we have no donut holes within our local district or national district. So we're unique in that regards. But I do think the effort that the planning department has done through the active town meeting to get rid of the antiquated R1 zoning and have that go away, and be the whatever zoning it should be based on the use and the property and all that, is a good effort from a preservation perspective.
So when did that occur already, the removal of the R1, or is that
No, that's been something that's been phased out, phased over time. I can't really speak much to it at the moment because I haven't really paid attention on the planning side. Unfortunately, all I got are multiple hats, but I haven't been integrated into those proposed changes. But that has been, my point is that has been something that has been acknowledged over the last few years. And I remember that from when I was the planner with the planning board, is trying to get rid of that particular zoning and have it so there's more succinct, because there's that always $1 million question. I'll give you an example. Down at let's see, what's it called? Oh, Lowell Place is an example of having stuff that's in the old historic district but not zoned old historic. And there's that misconception that not understanding the difference between the two. So if you have your zoning and the old historic district boundary actually line up, it would be helpful. So again, that is a helpful initiative. I don't know where that stands right now. I was going to look up my.
Tell me, while you're looking for that, we have talked about making those two boundaries coincident. But there would be issues of the impact on individual homes, structures, in terms of difference in limitations, either percent ground cover or side lot, front lot, setbacks and so forth. We have talked about it. In general, we think they should be the same, but we don't think it's something that you can just do with a stroke of a pen.
Right. I was going to bring that up again. Here's the map with the zoning on it. And of course, the pink is that R1, which really should be phased out. But then when you take, this is why I love GIS, and I don't do a day without it. Hold on. If you put the districts on here, there we go. So I know there's a lot of information here, but it's hard to see. But this is the outline of the old historic district, the 1955 original old historic district of town of Nantucket. And then, of course, as you go in a little bit further, this lighter line right here is the R1. So again, trying to get rid of that R1 in those areas. It is, like you said, Lee, it's not as easy as a stroke of a pen. Exactly. It's something that has to take diligence on, but that would be something that was nice. And that is another reason why the map that we have, the town has on the website, Nathan has, here we go, right here, is very helpful. We actually have this referenced in our survey plan, but here we go. You have your zoning in here of the old ROH, right? And then, of course, the blue line is the historic district. So it really, that really is telling on what properties are not zoned ROH versus the historic district. And like rightly so too, as well with Wisconsin. That's something that I would like to see happen a little bit more to assist those areas that are, you know, on the fringes, if you will, that we know are contributing, that kind of stuff.
And how do you suppose that could happen, Holly?
Town meeting, slowly. Yeah. And that's why it's not done overnight. That's why, you know, I think people are always, oh my gosh, another thing is zoning, but it can't all be done every year. I mean, you know, all the time, all in 1 year or a couple of years. It has to be incremental. So.
But potentially a recommendation in our area plan.
Absolutely, I would recommend that. Yeah.
No, I think we have to be a little careful with it because it's you know, if something currently is in an R1 area and we say now it's going to be ROH, as Lee already pointed out, it's going to allow further development because of the going from probably 30% ground cover up to, I think, 40%. So it might be beneficial for these homeowners, but it'll change the neighborhood density. So, you know, the zoning is about use and density,
Mm-hmm.
and the ROH is more about appearance. So I'm not sure they always have to align, but
That's why it'd be, I think, on a case by case kind of basis and looking at the property itself, whether it's a smaller lot anyways, the use, you know, is an older
Right.
structure, does it make sense? And obviously not going to be spot zoning. We don't like that.
Yeah, but appearance, interesting, Nikki, it's just appearance and density in the old historic district were kind of one and the same. The appearance is dense.
true.
Good point.
But you know, as I said, it will allow people to add on another 10% to their properties, and is that something that we want to encourage?
I don't know, you and I are in charge of writing about getting more housing. So I don't know.
That is a way. That is a way. And there are
Yeah.
other mechanisms to handle that.
My thinking about it is that it's, you know, it is confusing. It's kind of unfortunate the two zones don't really align, but I think that there are reasons that they don't, and I'm not sure that it's something that really needs to be fixed. But you know, it has to be looked at. What are the consequences? It's case by case, maybe, but you know, there's whole streets that are different. So
That actually sounds like a good recommendation right there, is looking at that issue. Because you don't necessarily need to have a concrete, this is what we need to do. It could be something to look at, since it, you know, obviously housing is of concern. And if you're adding additional ground cover allowance to these lots, is that going to be something that can be beneficial to our overall housing issue? I did want to just show you, and I'm not, real quick, let's see. this is just a screenshot of all the surveys that we've received from the effort for the fish lots. So again, have them all, and just waiting for them to be approved by MHC, and we'll have them available in your area of the fish lots. And yeah, it's just, there's so much, it's amazing not realizing that of these places that we thought there were significant history available as a survey. And obviously, as Marcia knows and Mickey knows, we've been able to, with our public and private partnership through MPT, NHA, Wisconsin Trust, PIN, to acquire all these resources, whether they're primary, secondary sources of these structures, and actually show, hey, look, it's here, and we have documentation. It's not just in, Clay Lancaster's architecture book or Henry Foreman's book. We actually have substantial history, and it's not just the architecture, it's also that social, cultural history that's very important to the overall context of the island. So, and the map behind me, the 1881 bird's eye view, which I always use, is used as well in some of these surveys. Zoom, you could zoom right in and pick them out. And then another effort to not just the preservation restrictions, which require an updated survey, but also if people are going through the historic tax credit process, those surveys also do get updated as well. So, and that is also something else that could help with our housing issues. So it's all tied in.
Holly, how many, I forget, how many houses are they able to do in 1 year period?
For our survey effort?
For the survey, yeah.
So the fish lots was approximately 100. And then, of course, that's because we had the overall pilot and the survey plan together into one project. But the effort in Brant Point is going to be approximately 140 surveys. Yeah. So again, that's divvied up between finishing the fish lots and going to Brant Point. So and for the knowledge of the committee here, MHC has to look at the cost of coming to Nantucket for a consultant and how it's a little bit different than other places and what that is equivalent to in their funding. And then they're the ones who actually tell me that's approximately this many surveys. Okay, so that's how we figure that out. But
that leaves a lot of properties downtown that haven't had either any survey or an even
right,
updated survey.
Right. And based on the preliminary projection that we received from one of the reports that our consultant provided us, that they're thinking that this entire effort is going to be at least a decade, if not longer. Actually, MHC was telling us that that's more. That's kind of conservative, saying that way. So again, the public and private partnership is so instrumental. And I've also been talking to the University of Florida Preservation Institute, Nantucket, of course, and I'm an alumni as well. But I've been talking to Clary Larkin, who is the program director there, and how they can utilize the effort that they do every summer to assist with the Form B. Whereas before, when they first started, back when it was the Nantucket Historical Trust, when Walter Beinecke was around, and when Blair Reeves created PIN, they were doing a lot of historic surveying and utilizing for the Historic American Building Survey, and actually creating as-built drawings for the Library of Congress, which is a great effort. And it actually is another source for our survey effort, but it doesn't really necessarily give us a direct survey that can be utilized for the historic district for their review process. And this is actually going to compile all that information together. So hearing PIN wanting to assist us in that effort is also great, especially how they're located right downtown in your area. And they usually focus within the town area. So I think it would benefit this group too.
Yeah, I guess in that regard, I would think it would be ideal if there was a way to have some kind of financial support to pull in the information that architects, designers have done already, or historians have already done on existing structures. There's a lot of information
There it is.
right now.
Yes, it's really up to, I mean, for instance, Nantucket Preservation Trust, they've done a lot of histories with their marker program, which was started way back, actually, when I was interning there, doing, the restriction, or preservation restriction research. But that history, I will tell you, NPT was instrumental with the surveys. Betsy Tyler was instrumental with the history that she was doing, was able to provide that to us so we could provide it to our consultants. You're absolutely correct. Nantucket Historical Association, of course, with Research Library, they've been a repository of a lot of the information. So it is up to really our efforts to be able to let our consultants know these are where we need to look. And that's what exactly the survey plan is doing. Is compiling all that information, best management practices. This is where all Nantucket information is, and this is how we're going to compile it. Not to mention the surveys that we have here in the office that have never actually gone anywhere, whether they're minimal or they might have some information in them, but nonetheless, there's a lot of information out there. I agree. So
Holly, I hate to stop you, but we're almost out of time.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We know you could go on for hours and we'd be hanging on every word.
No. You can tell me that you're done. But I will on Monday touch base with Nathan, and I will ask him to assist in this overlay. I think that will be really important for you all to have the overlay of your map along with our survey effort, and see where that aligns, and definitely assist in your description of your area from an historic and architectural cultural aspect.
Holly, if we wanted to put together a list of questions for Nathan, kind of as Marcia was alluding in terms of the database, what kind, the numbers of vacant lots or the numbers of single family dwellings or apartments,
Yep.
How would we go about that?
I mean, he's really good about, if you can send him an email, and he will help you do it that way. If you need to go through me or have me copied, not a problem. When he's on Nantucket, he's on the other side of the wall, so it'll be really easy for me to communicate with him, and I can just give him a heads up that what this effort is for. But yeah, he's really easy to communicate via email. Not a problem to
We
assist on
should
that.
think about how we ask the question, because it's easy to say how many of X, but a
Correct.
better question is, can you give me the breakdown of all the different uses for the properties in the district, so that we don't just get the answer to one particular use, we get the entire spectrum and account.
That'd be great.
Yep. So I'm here as your point of contact. Just let me know. I can definitely help with whatever you need on that. But the description, definitely. Our NHL is a great source for that. So I can assist you with that.
Thank you, Holly.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. And I hope you guys are just as giddy as I am, and what this means for the island. So.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll let Holly go, but the rest of us need to stay on for a little bit more.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, and happy Thanksgiving if I don't see you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, Mary.
Okay, so I did have a meeting with the planning department about the survey. If you remember, the question that was foremost was they had a preference for sending, or I should say receiving one survey answer per property. And we were interested in receiving answers from people. which could be any number of people in a particular property. It could be an owner, a renter, family members, who knows. And so I spoke with them, and they were okay with the way that we intended to run the survey, with one caveat, and that is that we wouldn't be able to use the results of the survey to answer questions like changing property uses. So, if the planning department, or if we wanted to, for instance, recommend a change from R1 to ROH for particular properties, our survey is not designed to provide answers to that kind of a question. And I didn't see that as a problem, because our survey is not designed to provide answers to that kind of question. Our survey is more designed to get information from people about how they feel, about what their experiences are, not about property characteristics. So I think that we are fine the way that we are, using the survey the way that we intend to use it. And I think the planning department understands that. And as long as we don't try and manipulate the results to make assertions that the planning department thinks we can't support, then we're fine. And I don't think we have any intention of manipulating results. So, long story short, that issue I think has been resolved, that we can continue in the way that we plan to. They also reviewed the survey questions individually, and they had a few tweaks. So I would be happy to go over those with you. I'm comfortable with them. If you don't want to spend the time now, we don't have to go over them. I can just make them. But I'm happy to go through them with you if you prefer.
Go ahead and go through them.
Okay, let me share my screen. I think that's going to be the right one. It's not the right one. Always an issue when you have so many. Why is that? Okay, are you seeing the survey?
Mhm.
Great, okay. It looks really strange on my screen, but I'll roll with it. So the going through here, so going to question 13. Are you well served by the businesses within the town area shown on the map above outlined in red? So their point was, there are so few businesses in our area that this question doesn't really provide useful information. And it isn't clear what we're really asking by asking for if they're well served. So their suggestion was we just eliminate this question. And, I had to kind of agree with them, what would we do with the results? It's a yes or a no answer here. How would that help us? So our more detailed questions will give us similar information about, where do people shop and that sort of thing. And then the question 14, please suggest new businesses that will be beneficial. That's really what we're trying to get at. And question 13 doesn't really change the results for 14. So with your permission, we'd remove 13.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay, so for 17, their suggestion was to add some positive and negative options instead of just a free form. So things like, well, we might have to come up with some, but they wanted more information on this one. So instead of just having people fill it out, they wanted to give some direction so that we could see, and it could be just a scale of 1 to 5, strong negative to strong positive or no impact. But they wanted more detail here. And that they also thought that because we're exempting parking and traffic, we might need to be a little bit more specific in order to get useful answers here. So if that makes sense to people, I'll see what I can come up with on that. Okay.
Okay.
Mary, this is Lee.
Yes.
Don't go back, but we have been talking about quality of life issues. And proximity to the commercial downtown does impact certainly the near neighbors with both noise and additional light or excess light.
So those are good ways to try and direct answers. Let me make a quick note.
I mean,
So-called quality of life issues.
I think, what about just the accessibility to a library, to the post office, to being able to, that's a real positive. Accessibility for services, for, the town building, to go vote, to go to the library, to go to the post office, to get a cup of coffee.
Okay, good. No, thank you for all these. I'm thrilled to have suggestions.
Well,
Any more?
well, I know for my children, it was a great positive because it was their whole playground.
Mhm.
It extended. So yes, I will email if there's some more I can think of, but
Great, thank you, Marcia.
I love living in the downtown, so there's tremendous to go and see the water.
Speaking of children, it's ice cream cones.
It's ice cream cones, it's walking to the water. It's like, if I'm going on a trip, I walk to the ferry. I love starting a trip across the country by walking to the ferry.
Okay, I've captured those, and of course, this is being recorded. Any others? Positive or negative?
Come on, somebody else, surely. You all live downtown, right? I love to walk.
Mhm.
I can do a loop of a walk and see historic buildings and the ocean and be at the beach and come back home
And get an ice cream.
and get an ice cream. Yeah, it's a walkable community. As long as you're
Yeah.
careful on the bricks.
Yeah, as opposed to living in Tom Nevers,
Yes,
where you wouldn't really walk very much. It's one of the reasons they want a bike path.
right.
Okay. And by all means, email me if you have other suggestions. So they wanted to think about the word throughput and suggested that I'd simply put volume and speed, as throughput might be a bit obscure or not really convey the meaning. So I can change throughput to the words volume and speed, because that was what was intended.
Okay.
Let's see. For number 23 here, it was interesting. Andrew wanted a specific response, yes or no, to allowing parking on sidewalks. He really wanted to get that feedback, so we can certainly add that to the survey. So it'd be, what parking restrictions, if any, would you suggest to improve pedestrian sidewalk access? And I'd have a couple of bullets here. So there's do not restrict parking. There would be enforce no parking on sidewalks, and then other. Is there anything else we want to add as a potential suggestion?
Well, what about bicycles?
Oh,
So
I
this is specific to parking. That's interesting.
Talking about improving pedestrian sidewalk access. Bicycles definitely are an impediment.
Yeah, and it's not just bikes, but all the micro mobility devices. So I can update this question if people think that's what we want to do.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
eliminates bicycles.
It would be suggestions to improve pedestrian sidewalk access. So getting rid of the first couple of words,
Okay,
and then it would be,
yeah, like
okay.
making the sidewalks safe,
Mhm.
to walk on. You know, the other one, I don't know if you could really deal with this one, but there are a number of them, a number of properties where you cannot walk on the sidewalk because they have taken up the sidewalk area for their car parking.
Right, that's the no parking cars on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not parking on the street, it's parking on a portion of their land plus the sidewalk. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, it is parking, but they're,
Marcia, this is Lee. We've been looking at this in the Committee on Roads and Right-of-Way. They very often are parked on the layout of the way, even though they're not parked on the paved portion of the way. So in our district, the town area, many of the ways are from sidewalk to sidewalk, and that's it. But as you get further out, some of the ways are 40 or 50 feet wide, even though they're only paved to 24. Those cars are probably illegally parked because they're parked on town land.
well, I'm,
Cliff Road's a good example of where cars are parked in the way. And I'm using the word way to imply the legal layout of the way as opposed to the paved street.
okay, are you talking about parallel parking?
Yes. Well, it doesn't matter where they put their car if it's on the town land. It very often is parallel.
Right, right. I was referring to when it's not parallel, when it's kind of essentially perpendicular.
When they're just sticking out of their driveway too far.
Exactly. And the only
Okay.
way that they can park their car on what they perceive as their property is for their car to be on what is the sidewalk.
They're encroaching on town land.
No, I know. That's why I'm bringing it up, because it's very dangerous. You know, if you're walking along with yourself.
Okay, reality strikes. There is a procedure in the town for dealing with encroachment, but they just lost their permit specialist to the Concom, and we've got one person who's dealing with encroachments. But there is a procedure, and we're hoping that they'll fill the position so that when you get a complaint to DPW or to the police, there'll be somebody to deal with it.
I guess I'm bringing it up because of question number 23, and if there's a way that one would choose to add that as an issue.
The appropriate phrase, Marcia, if you agree, is enforce encroachment restrictions.
Okay,
Better enforcement of encroachment restrictions.
yes.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's something that they could probably be issued a ticket for parking, blocking a public way, sidewalk. So it's really about enforcement, getting the police to issue a ticket.
I have a question too. What if it's not a sidewalk, but the grassy area in front of somebody's property that is actually owned by the town? Is that okay to park on?
No, not permanently.
Well, what about for a couple of hours?
Now you're looking at the difference between parking and what's the word we use for when you just stop? Stopping versus parking.
So 2 hours is called stopping?
No, that's parking. 2 hours is stopping is letting somebody out of your car.
No. Well, I've been told that it's legal for people to park on the grass in front of my house.
It just depends what the parking restriction is in your area.
Yeah, it's probably illegal for you to block them from doing it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's legal for them to do it.
Oh, is this complicated or what?
Yeah. We're getting beyond the scope of the question.
Yes, back to the questionnaire.
But it's very
I
important.
couldn't help myself.
I mean, I think pedestrian sidewalk access is important
Yeah.
in question 23. So whatever you can do with it, Mary.
All right, question 24, similar suggestion to give specific response options because they felt that there were different responses to different kinds of signs. So street signs are important. Cultural amenities may be somewhat less, historic properties. And so people might have different reactions to different kinds of signs. And they thought we should allow people to break out and say, well, we want this kind of sign, but we don't want that kind of sign. So I can just change this to specific responses for different kinds of signs instead of lumping them all together in a free-form question.
Okay,
Let's see. And then 25 and 26, they suggested combining these, essentially removing 25 and just keeping 26. The reason being, they felt that a lot of people would misconstrue quality of life as potentially personal issues rather than the sort of neighborhood, municipal issues. And really somebody could put their answer in either one of these boxes. So to simplify, we could just remove 25 and keep 26. And they were also, saying too many questions, get rid of a few. So I was like, well, there's a couple we can remove.
When you're asking number 26 for specific changes, I mean, I can imagine somebody finding a quality of life issue, but not knowing how or not able to express it as a request for a specific change.
Right. So we might say in 26, what issues do you see or what changes would you like to see in your neighborhood? So combining the two questions to get away from the word quality of life, because that means many different things to many people and could prompt people to provide personal information.
26 is a pretty open question.
Yeah.
I mean, you might get all kinds of unusual answers when you
Well,
ask.
that was the design for it, was one last catch-all so that people could point us in the direction of things that we hadn't thought about, the 8 of us.
Mhm.
And we don't live in every single neighborhood covered by the plan. There may be any number of small issues that should be addressed.
I still like 25. I think it's a good question.
I agree with Mickey.
Once again, if we add bullets for what we believe to be quality of life with respect to our town area, and that could be noise, lighting, both positive lighting, that is to say, street lights, negative, too bright.
I mean, that's potentially a very long list, Lee, and the intent of the question originally was for a free form response.
Okay.
To not provide a list so that people could tell us what we hadn't already thought of.
So what if you just did 2 or 3 and then an other?
Well, if the questions are combined, it'd be what issues do you see or what changes would you like to see in your neighborhood? What do you want the responses other than the free-form box to be?
Can we leave it the way it is?
I have a suggestion. Why can't you combine them by saying, what changes would you like to see in your neighborhood that would improve the quality of your life?
There we go.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. Good job, Marianne.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Because that is giving a little direction to think about your neighborhood rather than your personal circumstances.
I like it.
Okay. So that is that. I will export the responses that we've already received because I'm not sure what changing the survey will do to those. And I'll let you know, I guess. Right now I have it so that you can edit the responses. What I did previously was delete the first round. I don't want to delete the second round and make you guys do it all again. So, just for a few changes. So I will make sure that those are saved. And then if I do have to delete them, I will have them and I can add them back to the official tally. And that's the end.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
25 questions isn't that many questions.
It all depends on your perspective. I agree. And you have to ask the questions that will give you the information you're looking for.
Hmm.
It doesn't do us any good to cut out half the questions and not have the results.
Any idea when this is gonna go out?
So that was the other thing I wanted to show. Hang on. Try that again. Okay, are you seeing the postcard layout with the QR code?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the postcard that I designed. And essentially the address would have the picture of the town area plan outline. Has a return address for the Nantucket Town Association. I didn't think it was going to be helpful to put the plus department as the return address. So Henry, if you think that that is acceptable. And then the flip side invites people to take the survey, explains about the definition of the area, and has the QR code, which they can scan with a mobile device, or the link, which they can type into a browser. And then I also have the Henry and I listed as our various chair positions on the committees. And I have a Gmail account, townareaplan@gmail.com, which I use to set up the survey. And that can also accept questions directly through email. So that was about all I could fit on there. It's a little 4x6 postcard. But if any suggestions or edits are welcome.
Mary, is there a link on the town's website to the survey plan?
No, remember, we wanted to send this specifically to the addresses that were within the town area, so we
Yeah.
couldn't. If we don't get responses, we can certainly publicize it more widely. We can put it on social media, we can send it out through the town. But hopefully we will get responses
Yeah.
from the people who are in the area.
Got it.
We're not using any specific code. We're relying on the one question on the survey that asks what street they live on to sort of qualify them.
You know,
Okay.
the only potential suggestion I might have would be to make it somewhat more personal by handwriting thanks and having Henry and Mary sign their names.
There are 1,800 addresses, Marcia. That's not.
No, I don't, I don't mean each. I mean a signature that would be a digital signature that would go on. But it's always nice. I mean, when
Yes.
I'm getting thousands of surveys, and if there's a person, you know, I just feel much more motivated to respond.
We could attempt that. It will be tiny, but it will certainly add a note of personalization. I have a digital signature. Henry, all I need is your signature and I can turn it into one.
Okay.
So Marcia, that's actually probably a pretty good idea,
I like it.
if I can squeeze it in. Poets Corner is going to be designing and printing these. So what I have is a mock-up to let them know what I'm looking for, but they are going to have to take all the different elements and put them into a printable file. So I'll be providing them with the different graphics, and hopefully with the signatures, they would be able to do what you're talking about, Marcia. But I don't know what the capabilities are for what they can print and what they can put together.
Okay.
I am not a graphic designer. I do not have the right software for it.
Right. Yes, I'm sure they can do that
Mhm.
once you hand them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the postcards will have to go through the postage meter at the Plus department. Megan assured me it's something they do all the time with many hundreds of notifications that go out. So I don't know what the time frame will be for when those postcards are actually physically mailed or how long it will take to print them. But we had to hold it back because of the question about who we were sending them to and how we were going to tabulate the responses. So I think we have, we're good to go. I can send all the elements to Poets Corner and make the edits to the survey. And by the time the postcards are ready, the survey should be final. So.
Excellent.
Okay.
But I imagine it will be a couple of weeks yet before the postcards go out because it's a holiday week coming up. They need to be designed and then printed and then mailed.
Okay, anything else? I'll take that as a no. I have 5:26, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Very good. Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
Thanks, Henry.
Bye.